In the fading heat of a dying afternoon, the greatest conqueror the ancient world had ever seen stood on the banks of a river that no Greek had crossed before. He was no longer the unstoppable youth of Macedon. He was now a king whose empire stretched from the deserts of Egypt to the snow peaks of the Hindu Kush. But inside his eyes burned a fire that refused to die. This is the story of Alexander's final march, the march that broke his army, his empire, and perhaps even him. Today, we uncovered the final chapter, the mutiny, the brutal return through the Gedrosian Desert, the political conspiracies, and the mysterious death that still haunts history. The year was 326 BCE. Alexander had defeated Porus at the Battle of Hydaspes, one of the bloodiest clashes of his life. But victory came with a price. His soldiers had marched for 8 long years across Asia. They had crossed deserts, frozen mountains, and jungles filled with insects they had never seen before. Now, as Alexander stood before the vast river Hephaestion, today's Bios River, he told his men, "Beyond this river lies the end of the world, and I intend to take it." But instead of cheers, there was silence. The Macedonian army had reached its breaking point. The officers approached Alexander with lowered heads. They were loyal, no one questioned that, but they were tired, sick, wounded, homesick. They had buried too many friends. They had marched farther than any army in world history. Conus, one of Alexander's most trusted generals, finally spoke. "My king, the men will not follow. They wish to return to their families, their homes, their lives. We beg you, listen to them." Alexander locked eyes with Conus. This was betrayal. To him, it felt like the gods themselves had turned their backs. For 3 days, Alexander waited for his army to change their minds. They did not. Finally, he made his decision. Alexander walked alone to the riverbank, prayed to the gods of the world he would never conquer, and ordered the retreat. For the first time in his life, Alexander was forced to surrender. Returning was not a simple journey. Alexander did not want to appear defeated. He did not want other kingdoms to think he was weak. So instead of taking the safe way home, he planned something far more dangerous. He would divide his army into 3 groups, one by sea under Admiral Nearchus, one on land under Craterus, and Alexander himself would lead the main force across the deadliest desert in the ancient world, the Gedrosian Desert. Nobody understood why. Some believed he wanted to punish his army for refusing to march farther. Others believed he wished to outdo the Persian king Cyrus, who had failed to cross the same desert centuries before. Whatever the reason, the march would become one of the darkest tragedies in ancient military history. The desert greeted them with silence. No birds, no water, only endless sand and scorching winds. By day, the sun cooked their armor. By night, freezing winds tore through their tents. Soon, the food ran out, then the water. Soldiers collapsed on the sand, begging for mercy that never came. Stories say that mothers threw their newborns into the sand because they couldn't feed them. Others say that soldiers drank the blood of their own horses to survive. Alexander refused to ride. He marched on foot beside his dying men. He shared their rations. He shared their thirst. He even refused water once, because the amount was only enough for one man. But leadership alone could not defeat nature. By the time the army escaped the desert, they had lost over 30,000 men, more than any battle in Alexander's lifetime. His greatest conquest had become his greatest tragedy. When Alexander finally reached Susa, something in him had changed. The bright, ambitious conqueror was gone. In his place stood a man haunted by shadows. He executed commanders who disobeyed him. He replaced loyal Macedonians with Persian nobles. He married Eastern queens, adopted Eastern customs, and began calling himself King of Kings. Many whispered, "Alexander is no longer one of us." The tension exploded when his closest friend, Hephaestion, fell sick and died. Alexander shattered. He stopped eating. He stopped sleeping. He killed the doctors he blamed for the death. He ordered massive sacrifices to honor his friend, enough animals to feed entire kingdoms. Some historians believe this was the moment Alexander lost his grip on reality. He was a king without limits, without equals, without anyone who could say no. Despite the chaos, Alexander began planning something enormous. He wanted to merge the Greeks and Persians into one people. He wanted one army, one empire, one language, one future. He ordered thousands of mass marriages. He trained a new Persian military elite. He recruited young boys from across the empire who would be raised to fight like Macedonians. For the first time in history, the world was on the brink of becoming one unified super empire. But before he could finish his dream, fate intervened. In June of 323 BCE, in the city of Babylon, Alexander attended a long night of drinking at the palace of Nebuchadnezzar. He laughed, he drank, he sang, he made plans for a new conquest, Arabia. But then, the king's voice grew weak. He felt a burning pain spread through his body. His fever soared. His soldiers carried him to his bed, but the pain did not stop. For 11 days, Alexander lay dying. He could no longer speak. He could only move his eyes. His generals stood around him weeping. When they asked him, "Alexander, to whom do you leave your empire?" the dying king whispered, "To the strongest." Those were his final words. Alexander the Great died at the age of 32, a king who conquered the world, but could not conquer death. After his death, the generals didn't mourn. They prepared for war. The empire was too large, too powerful, too tempting. Before dividing his kingdom, they argued about something surprising. Who would have Alexander's body? To ancient kings, the body was a symbol of divine power. Whoever controlled it controlled the legacy. Ptolemy, one of Alexander's most trusted commanders, hijacked the funeral caravan and took the body to Egypt. There, he placed Alexander's corpse in a golden sarcophagus and built a tomb that became the most visited shrine in the ancient world. The tomb, however, is lost today. Alexander's empire shattered. His generals carved it into pieces. His dream of a single world vanished. But the legend remained. He became a symbol of ambition, courage, and power. A king who fought like a mortal, but thought like a god. His name traveled across continents, languages, and centuries. Even today, the world still whispers, there was once a man who tried to conquer everything. And this is the final march of Alexander the Great, his triumphs, his tragedies, his final breath, and the mystery that changed the ancient world forever. If you want the next episode, where we uncover the secrets of his missing tomb, the lost treasure, and the untold conspiracies, like, comment, and subscribe to Hidden U.S. History.